So there is this guy that fell in love with a girl and they lived happily ever after. Psych. So for whatever reason, this girl gets sent to live with her grandmother. He says that she warned him that her grandmother was very overprotective and that she was also a witch, so he better be careful. So after a while of dating, the girl's like, well, I think you should meet my grandmother, and he agreed. So the day came, he went to the grandmother's home and she was so fucking rude to him. She was mean. She did not like him at all. So because the grandmother was so fucking rude to him, he was like, okay, well, my turn. So he ends up telling the grandma, well, I don't care if you don't like me. I don't care what you think about me. I'm here for your granddaughter and not for you. Did he forget that she said she was a witch? So time has passed. They're still dating. And this guy's like, I want to take our relationship to the next level. He wants to do the nasties. But because the grandmother did not like him, he was like, well, we can't do it at the grandmother's house. I don't have money for a hotel. So he has no other option but to say, hey, let's go to my house. So they end up going to his house. And as they walk into his house, he says that something weird fucking happened. The atmosphere in there was fucking strange. Like, it felt very dark. And for some reason, he was scared out of nowhere, just scared as soon as he walked into his house. He even says that he was so scared that he didn't even try to do it with the girl. Like, that fear just like took it out of the equation. What fucking story am I reading right now? What the fuck? He also noticed something else that night though. He says that there is a balcony in his house, and next to the balcony there's a tree. And as of that day, this owl would appear in that tree anytime he was home. Time passes and this guy is still thinking about like wanting to be with that girl. He's at the point where he's like, you know what? I don't even care. Like, fuck it. So he brings her again to his house. He says that the second they crossed that front door, that girl's phone started ringing. And you guessed it, it was the grandmother, and she did not want to talk to her granddaughter. She wanted to speak with him. And he gets the phone and she tells him, don't you ever think for a second that I'm gonna let you guys do anything. Tell her to leave and tell her to come back to my house right now. But instead of doing that, he's like, let's go to a party. And he is still thinking about sleeping with this girl. And he's like, it's a party. Maybe we can escape and do it and nothing's gonna happen. It's somebody else's house. There's so many people around. Just a heads up, it's not just the guy that wants to fool around with her. Like, she really wants to sleep with him too. Which is why she agreed to go to the party even though she had a curfew of midnight. So they get to the party, obviously excited, and they're outside mingling with their friends. But that was when they started to hear some fucking weird sounds from afar. And he knew exactly what those sounds were because it was the same sounds that Owl would make outside of his balcony. So he looks at the girl and he's like, are you fucking kidding me? That's the owl. And he tells her, do you think that's your grandma? And she's like, I think so, because she is a witch. She also explained to him that supposedly she had heard from other people that her grandmother can shapeshift into an owl. So they both agreed not to do it at that party, and not just because of the owl, but because there wasn't a lot of people and they were just having a lot of fun with their friends. However, they ended up staying at the party until 2 in the morning. They both knew that she was going to be in big trouble when she got home because her curfew was at 12. She's getting there after 2 in the morning. But in that moment, he thought to himself, okay, if this lady is a witch, she has to do things like secretly. I don't think a witch is gonna come out here and be like, hey, I'm a witch and let me fuck up your life. So he thought to himself, well, maybe if I catch her, maybe if I tell her that I know it's her, maybe things will change. But these thoughts didn't just come to him freely. There's a reason why. And it was because when they finally made it to their grandmother's house, they look up at the tree and you could see that there's an owl there, but the owl is asleep. He said that in that moment where they saw the owl asleep on the tree, they immediately saw when something just like dropped all the way to the ground. It startled them both so much that he turned the car back on because he wanted the headlights to light up to see what the fuck that was. He said that when the lights hit this thing, they both see this humanoid fucking creature that was like 6 feet tall, the bones cracking in different ways, and that the face of this humanoid looked like an owl's face. The last thing he was able to see was that the arm still had random feathers like coming off of them, and that was when this thing ran behind the house to hide. He said he turned to look at the girl, and the girl was looking at him, and she said, please don't ever speak about this ever in your life. But he claims that after seeing that, the grandmother never talked back to him, the owl never never showed up to his house, and she was so nice and actually let them date, come over whenever they wanted. And he thinks that it was because he had caught her at her most vulnerable moment, where they both knew that that owl was indeed her grandmother. By the way, if you want to hear this in Spanish, I found it here on TikTok. It's Hablemos de lo que no existe, and this is what the video should look like in the beginning. I don't know why, and this is just my opinion, but I don't think that the grandma was like an evil witch. Sounds very overprotective, because I feel like if she was a bad witch, she would have made sure that he was out of the fucking picture. Although everything was scary, because I would have been so scared. I feel like she was definitely just looking out for her granddaughter. And maybe in that moment she knew that she could scare the fuck out of him by just being who she is, and she doesn't even have to do anything else. But what do you guys think?